So as I wrapped up that first part, I thought like that was a bunch, and it wasn't the one main thing that you wanted to say, which isn't that always the way it goes. Um, the one thing that like more than anything else really stood out to me is okay, so the 28 video series or whatever. It's like how many people have some kind of creation inside of themselves that as they think about as they think about creating it, it's like, yeah, but nobody wants that. Like nobody asked me for that. Nobody like has expressed interest in that. And I feel like it's almost this dynamic, and I used to fall into this hardcore, and that's why I can see it so clearly. But like there was a time when I wished for my audience. I wished for them, someone to listen to me because I have so much to say. I have so much to say. Where are they? Why won't they come? I need to be listened to. Oh, and I can still remember the exact unfolding that brought this shift in me. Originally, it was a few years ago, and I manifested an amazing opportunity that just at the time it blew my mind. It was like the best thing that had happened to me in a while. And it was to be a keynote speaker at this convention here in the state of Kansas, and to get to give like a 30-minute speech on stage in front of 1,000 people. And this was like, my dream come true. Like, I want to be a professional public speaker. Like, that is still very much where we're headed. It has many, many nuances that didn't used to be there in that vision. But that is still very much the goal, to stand on stage in front of a large crowd of people. And it was so fun to get asked. It was so fun to prepare that speech. It was so fun to deliver it. Oh my God, it was amazing to get to deliver it. It was amazing to get to be backstage before, and like the butterflies in my stomach and the intensity of like walking out on stage, and like you can't see any of those people because there's nothing but spotlight. Like it was so amazing. And as life often is, it was very, very specifically orchestrated to where when I finished that speech, I immediately got in my car and drove 2 hours to Kansas City. And then I was at the airport for a couple hours. And then I took an hour and a half flight. And so basically, there was like 6 hours after that speech when, because I was going to Denver to visit my friend, that's just how it worked out. Like as soon as I was done giving the speech, I left and I wasn't around any people. And so I mention all of that because I hadn't expected it to feel like anything. I was like, I'll just do my speech and then I'll go to the airport. And that was like all I was really prepared for. And it was hard. It was so uncomfortable because normally after I give a speech, I discovered I really, 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 really like the part afterwards when people come up to me and tell me what an amazing job I did. I just really, really, really like that part of it. And the way it worked out, I got in my car and I drove to Kansas City, and then I got on a plane, and like I was not with anybody who wanted to tell me what an amazing job I did. And it left me with myself. Talk about master level manifestation. It left me with myself. My only support in that time was me. And did I think I had done a good job? I didn't freaking know. I don't know. How do you even tell? How do you even know if you did a good job? And I was just sick thinking that I probably didn't. And there was nobody around to tell me that it was like probably the worst speech I ever gave. Like, this is what goes on in my mind while I'm on the plane, especially. And I'm journaling. Oh man, I'll bet that would be fun to like go back and reread that journaling that I did, because I was like crazy. I was like mentally ill inside of that moment where I was just sick that there was nobody to tell me what a good job I did. And in the playing out after that event, like in the week or two afterwards, like I got over that initial hard hurdle of having to reassure myself that I did a good job and not needing other people to tell me, that was definitely a turning point. And I'm not saying I've totally turned out of that, but definitely way more than back then. And in the aftermath, I found myself in a deep depression because probably it's going to be a long time, if ever, before I get asked to stand on a stage again. And I was just sick. I was like, I love it so much and I can't have it. They won't give it to me. Why won't they give it? This is what I want. Anybody relate to that? Is it just me? Um, yeah, I was sick again, that like it's probably going to be another long time and like I want this so bad. I want to stand on a stage. I want to talk. I want to tell my stories. I want to teach. I want to explain. I want this badly. And I'll never forget the moment I was walking down aisle 1 of my grocery store right by the yogurt with my friend, and I was telling them how badly I wanted this. And all of a sudden, I don't even know that they said anything. I don't really remember them even saying anything. It just was like all of a sudden this shift, like this dot connected that was like, why don't you give yourself a stage? Why don't why don't you stop waiting on somebody to invite you onto their stage? And why don't you put yourself on your own stage? And specifically what I was thinking about in my mind was Facebook Live. Facebook Live. Like you can go live on your Facebook anytime, any day, anywhere, for any reason. You can get on there and say whatever you want. You have a stage and you refuse to stand on it. This was the epiphany that changed my life, was why don't you give yourself a stage instead of waiting on somebody to give you one? And that day I went home and I did my first Facebook Live, and it was terrifying. And I only did like another few Facebook Lives. It just wasn't, it was hard. It was so hard to be on there live, like in front of people, or worse yet, if nobody was there. Like if the little thing just said 0 people and you're just like in a room talking to yourself and nobody wants to be there. Like it just was really hard to do Facebook Lives for me. It just wasn't the path of least resistance. And fast forward to the end of that year, the friend I had went to visit, that was the spurring of my year of speaking truth that within a couple months led to me starting my podcast. And that podcast has almost 100 episodes on it now in 2 years. Yeah, in just it'll be 2 years at the end of February. Um, so in here, just in a few weeks, it'll be 2 years since I started that podcast and gave myself a stage. Nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody, I mean, very few people listened, and I just kept talking. I just kept expressing. And after about 50 podcast episodes, I felt this call in September of 2021 during my year of speaking truth. That was kind of like the next phase of, I felt this call to like, I've gotten pretty comfortable using my voice when it's a podcast episode, and I feel ready to take the next step and try my hand at videos again, like maybe not a live, like where there's people present, but let me just sit on my porch on a fall morning that's beautiful outside and the sun is shining, and let me just sit here and tell a story that sounds fun to tell. Let me, go get a cup of coffee and then record myself telling another story that feels fun to tell. And then the concrete is kind of hurting my butt. So let me go in the house and get a blanket to roll up so I can sit on that. And then tell another story that it was fun to tell. And that was how that first day of trying to make videos, how that unfolded, was like, let me just sit here and do what feels nice in a place that feels magical, in a way that feels fun for me, Nobody's asking to hear these stories, but I'm going to give myself a stage. I'm not going to wait for anybody to express interest. I'm not going to wait for anybody to validate that I deserve to tell these stories. They validate us with their invitation to come onto their stage. Like, of course, that's validating. Of course, that feels nice. Of course, like, if you can gather 1,000 people and you want me to come and talk to them, like, I will. But I can also give myself a stage. I can also stand on stage anytime I want. I can create anytime I want. I can use my voice anytime I want. Right? I'm doing it right now. I'm alone in this room. There's nobody here. In your moment, you're listening, but that's not the same time as where I am. I'm alone. I'm on a stage, and there's only me in my audience. I'm creating for the pleasure of creating. I'm standing on the stage for the pleasure of getting to stand on the stage and tell my story. It's all just for fun. It's all just for fun. What would that mean in your life for you to give yourself a stage?